As we start, could I request Mr. Vijay Bulani, Mr. Rajendra Pawar, Mr. Brian Landis, Mr. Harish Pillai, Mr. Chanchal Das Gupta, and Mr. Robert Lawrence to join me on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome to you to the launch of SPE India's Plastic Pipes 2019 International Conference. I am Ramesh Parshuraman, Vice President, SPE India. It's heartwarming indeed to see all of you here, and thank you for joining us today. The importance of pipes can never be stressed enough. The plastic pipe industry is arguably one of the most important industries in India's infrastructure, as water distribution, waste disposal, irrigation, telecommunication, and a myriad of other services rely on plastic pipe to work effectively. As you all know, this conference is themed on pipe dreams to dream pipes. We at SPE India have organized some of the foremost experts in the industry to show us how to make this a reality. Worldwide, the demand for plastic pipes is projected to grow at about 5% per annum. Construction applications make up for the largest share of plastic pipe demand. Plastic pipe demand in India is still projected to rise by about 9% annually. Due to the ongoing efforts to expand access to potable water and sanitation systems, the growth in plastic pipe demand is expected to be robust in many developing countries. Technological advancements and improvements in polymer resins have caused an increase in the share of plastic pipes in various sectors. As far as India is concerned, plastic pipes is a very well-established product, with the first installation of PVC pipes in 1960s. The sector has grown substantially in over 5 decades. Their acceptance is increasing due to the long-term performance, ease of installation, awareness towards the life cycle cost, national infrastructure development, rapidly increasing urbanization, government's focus on irrigation and Make in India drive are some of the major factors facilitating the growth of the plastic pipe industry in this country. We from SPE India hope that the Plastic Pipes 2019 International Conference will enhance your knowledge base and add value to you. We shall kick off this keynote of the conference by a welcome address from our President, SPE India, Vijay Bulani. Vijay is a graduate of economics from the University of Bombay, and he joined Bulani Engineering Corporation in the year 1974. BEC was established in 1949 and introduced the first plastic processing extruder in India. They have till date over 15,000 installations in various plants and machinery. Over the years, he has acquired thorough knowledge of plastics and engineering technology under the guidance of his illustrious father, Mr. B.L. Bulani, who we have the pleasure of having with us today, whose contribution to the Indian plastic industry is quite significant. He has extensively traveled throughout the globe and also visited many leading companies manufacturing plastic and synthetic fiber processing machines. His interest in polymers, plastics, and chemicals have given him an opportunity to study the latest manufacturing techniques in the machine building industry. This in turn has improved the quality of machines manufactured by Bulani Engineering Corporation. He is one of the founder members of SPE India and has held several positions in the same. Presently, he is the president of SPE India. He also has the distinction of being the first Indian to be the SPE Global President from 2014 to 2015. I'm saying first Indian because I'm sure there'll be many more to follow, Brian. He has also served as the Joint Secretary and Vice President of All India Plastics Manufacturers Association. He has served as a member of the Governing Council of Indian Plastic Institutes, as well as Chairman and of the IPI Awards Committee in Plast India 2000 exhibition. He has carried out international conferences, industry award functions, created member directories for institutes, and assisted in planning and executing exhibitions in India and overseas. He has assisted in setting up the first plastics library in this country. He has been a visiting faculty of universities and government organizations. I can go on and on, but then we still have the day to go through. So Vijay, please.
Thank you, Ramesh. I think my entire life flashed before my eyes. It was pretty long. Okay, good morning, folks, and hope you had a smooth flow to this event venue where 2 exciting days await you with talks and interaction on the latest emerging trends in the plastic pipes industry. Okay, I was on the innovations and future trends in the plastic pipes industry in India and globally. This being the 3rd edition of plastic pipes, 2 were held in 2015, one and one in 2017. This is the 3rd edition, and the last 2, I do get a feedback, were pretty useful and successful for the attendees and even for SPE as an organizer. The plastic pipe industry has come a long way from its early 1900s and is galloping at an exciting pace with innovation and demand to meet the globe's exacting requirements. Historically, the world has relied on metal, concrete, clay for pipe products, but that has changed when replacing or building new systems where plastic pipes offer a heady balance of higher performance and lower costs. The technical innovation and rapid development by the stakeholders in the industry have made the plastics material of choice for pipes. Portable water, sewage systems, oil and gas, mining, chemicals, irrigation, industrial chemicals, plumbing, underfloor heating, road cooling and heating, to name a few applications. What is the current scenario? Strong construction activity, particularly in large markets of China, the United States and India, will boost demand as plastics pipes see intensive use in both building and non-building construction applications. The energy, agriculture and industrial sectors tend to be less intensive users of plastic pipes than construction. However, improvements in technology and plastic materials have helped plastic pipe increase its share in many of these markets. Growth in plastic pipe will be robust in the developing countries of Africa, Asia and South America due to efforts to expand access to potable water and sewage systems. On the basis of region, the market is segmented into the Asia Pacific, as we call it, APAC, Europe, North America, and rest of the world. It's called ROW, rest of the world. North America represents one of the largest markets for the plastic pipes globally. The United States will play an important role which cannot be ignored. Any changes from United States might affect the development trend of plastics globally. Asia Pacific, second in pecking order, will occupy far more market share in the following years, especially China, fast-growing India, and Southeast Asia regions. The market in APAC is expected to capture an impressive growth rate by 2023. Increased efforts towards oil and gas exploration in many APAC countries is also viewed as an important driver of APAC plastic pipes demand. According to a latest report, Europe pipe market is expected to attain a healthy compounded average growth rate of 5.18% during the forecast period of 2019-2023. What is the Indian scenario for PVC pipes, which is the major consumption globally and also in India? The PVC pipes market in India is projected to exhibit a CAGR of over 14% during 2016 to 25. On account of expanding agriculture sector, coupled with strong growth in infrastructure development, rapid industrialization, rising urbanization, all add to this. Moreover, increasing favorable government policies and investments, growing population, and rising construction activities in the country are to drive the consumption of PVC in India during this period. The plastic pipes and fittings market, comprising of PVC, UPVC and CPVC, is estimated to be approximately $3.5 billion. And within this, the plastic pipes and fittings in building and construction is estimated to be about $1.3 billion. The union budget, under the union budget of 2016-17, the government announced a total investment of US $12.95 billion on irrigation projects over the coming 5 years, with an aim to uplift agriculture output of the country. Furthermore, growing adoption of PVC in pipes and fittings industry is projected to boost India PVC market between 2016 to 2025. The global market trends is expected to reach an estimate of $87 billion by 2023, the plastic pipe requirements, and is forecasted to grow at a CAGR of 6.2% from 2018 to 2023. It is forecasted that PE pipes are expected to witness significant growth over the forecast period because of their heat resistance, low cost, durability and minimal maintenance requirements, and superior energy efficiency. What are the emerging trends which have a direct impact on the dynamics of the plastic pipe industry? Include the usage of antimicrobial plastic pipes to improve hygiene, replacement of traditional pipes with eco-friendly materials, PE, ABS, so on, and increasing consumption of multi-layer pipes in gas distribution. These are just a few applications. You will be hearing a lot more about new stuff in the next 2 days. The future of the global plastic pipe market looks promising, with opportunities in water and wastewater, agriculture, chemical and electrical, telecommunication, cable projects. The major growth drivers for this market are the growing residential and non-residential construction activities, replacement of aging pipelines, and increasing awareness of the attractive properties of plastic pipes. APAC is expected to remain the largest market and witness the highest growth rate over the forecast period due to increasing urbanization, infrastructure development, and continuous growth of the residential, construction and industrial sectors. Future trends. Based on end use, the market has been segmented into water and wastewater, construction, chemicals, irrigation, oil and gas. The construction segment is anticipated to remain highly profitable during the assessment period. Countries such as India and China are undergoing tremendous infrastructural expansion, which has bolstered the construction sector in these countries. Pipes are common construction material in gas pipelines, HVAC systems, water and waste pipelines. The objectives of the Plastic Pipes and 2019 conference, and I call it a conclave because, everybody who's a stakeholder in the industry is here. The Plastic Pipes 2019 conference and conclave offers a clear insight about the influential factors that are expected to transform the global market in the near future. Both top-down and bottom-up approaches will be discussed and deliberated over the next 2 days to validate the market size of plastic pipes. The objective of Plastic Pipes 2019 conference is to discuss and showcase the plastic pipe production, capacity, value, consumption, and status with a focus on emerging trends and innovations in pipeline. To highlight the market's potential and benefits, opportunities and challenges, patience and risk in the major sectors. To help identify key elements and factors that encourage or obstruct the growth of plastic pipes market. To identify high growth areas and display opportunities for stakeholders in the pipe industry, plastic pipe industry. SPE India's Plastic Pipes Conference provides an overview of industrial analysis covering insight from all stakeholders, including resin and additive manufacturers, equipment suppliers, processors and end users, and even nodal government agencies. So we come to the theme part of it, pipe dreams to dream pipes. At the conclusion of the conference, you will have a clearer and deeper understanding to enable you to take the path forward as an important stakeholder in the plastic pipes industry. I'm sure the presentations by experts in the field will benefit the attendees as also did in the past two conferences, and they will take home something more to explore and implement. That comes to end of my talk, but I would like to say a few words about SPE, which is a global organization with a membership of over 30,000 plastic professionals worldwide with 82 sections, and with SPE India section among the largest sections in the fold. SPE Global, where I had the honor to serve for many years in various roles and as president in 2014-15, is transforming with current times with changes in structure to attract more board members with specific skills to grow the society. It is not out of place to mention that we are fortunate to have the current SPE Global President, Dr. Brian Landis, and CEO. And I would like to recognize Dr. Brian Landis and Patrick Ferre, if you could kindly stand and they will be sharing their vision with us for SPE's path forward. Please do take time to interact with them over the next 2 days. The next Antec in the US is to be held from March 29 to April 2nd, 2020, and it will be held in San Antonio, Texas, USA. The theme for the conference, annual technical conference, is today's ideas at Antec are tomorrow's innovation in plastic. I would urge you all to visit and experience the same, if not already done so in the past. We are thankful for your continued patronage to SPE India's highly professional and technical programs like this one, and coming year will see a few more events focused on the advances in other areas. Thank you. Before I just wind up, I would really like to recognize the effort, because I have been on the 30,000 feet view with this conference. I would like to recognize the chair and co-chair, if they can please stand up, Harish Pillai, Chanchal Dasgupta, and the two foundations, Ramesh and Rajiv, Ramesh. Where's Rajiv? Okay, he's missing. Dr. Shrikant, Mr. Roop Devnani, Professor Kale. It would have not been possible without these major drivers of this conference. And I would also recognize the senior members, if they are present here, Mr. Bulani, who has been, and Mr. Nambiar, if he's here, Dr. Thakkar, who was the first president in 1981 of SPE India section, unfortunately couldn't be with us, but he sends his regards. With that, I will end. Thank you.
Thanks, Vijay, for your insights. It definitely seems, as per the rosy picture that Vijay has painted, that we are in the right industry, all of us here, yeah? Okay, our next keynote speaker is Mr. Rob Lawrence. Rob Lawrence is a specialist in urban water supply, sewerage, and stormwater drainage, particularly using non-metallic systems. Additionally, he has guided projects in oil and gas in onshore and offshore installations, and advised on plastic systems in the uncompromising Middle East environment. He has managed design and study work, taking control of technical supervision teams, project managed, and has been responsible for client liaison and marketing. In over 4 decades, he has worked in Pakistan, Kenya, Somalia, throughout the Middle East, Indonesia, and the United Kingdom. As the managing director of Gulf Plastic Pipe Academy, he has addressed the shortfall in design and knowledge in non-metallics for basic infrastructure and more demanding industrial applications. He has organized workshops and seminars for engineers and technicians at entry level and has encouraged certifications of installers and key workers. Now, as one of the founding members of Project, he continues his interest in non-metallic materials and their many engineering applications. Robert, please.
Good morning, and thank you for that fine introduction, and my many thank yous to SPE for the invitation. It's quite an honor to see so many well-known faces in the industry down here. I have been told that I talk too much and I should get on with it because I nearly always overrun, so I will go ahead. As you see, I look after Project. If you want to know more about it, you can see me later. And really what I'm going to do is to give you some perspective about where we are as an industry in the context of a very long history, which you may not know much about. And then have a quick look into the future through our magic eyeglasses. So a little history, some regional perspective, some opinions that I've gained over the last 40, 45 years, and 1 or 2 case studies, some nice photographs to show you what great achievements we've actually come up with in this region over the last 2 decades in particular. So just a quick start, to give you some idea of where we're at. The clay pipe industry kicked off 3,500 BCE, as we say nowadays. So about 5,500 years ago, one of our main competitors had about a 100% market share. In the Indus Valley, around about the same time, they had water channels, they had buried sewers, they had public baths, and we'll examine that a little bit in a bit more detail in a few minutes. Copper pipes are not a pain in the neck now. They've been a pain in the neck for about 4,500 years. Glazed clay is not new technology. That's also been around for something like 2,500 years. And bronze and lead pipes, the metals came in, they're relative newcomers at only about 2,000 years ago. Just to get some regional context, in the Indus Valley, in Mohenjo-daro and some of the surrounding towns, we're talking here about 4,000, 3,500 BC, about 5,000 years ago, they had a sanitation system. Almost all the citizens were connected. The drainage ran through all of the city, even into the poorest areas, as far as we could estimate. And the system was accessed by covered manholes. So the operatives could get in and out and then put the cover back on, no doubt eliminating the smell. And they had public baths, which were open to just about everybody, if you had money, of course. So 5,000 years later, we're going to look at what improvements we've made, if any. These are some of the pipes that have been dug up around the region, from Cyprus to Syria to Iraq. The wooden pipes from London, and possibly the origin of the term trunk mains. So now more recent history, just maybe the last 500 years. I wasn't actually around when all this happened, I must emphasize, even though my hair is that white. Around about the 15th century, the first cast iron was used in Germany, as you'd expect. Leaders in technology. And mass production of cast iron started very early on in the 19th century. So the pipe industry is really well established. In 1912, a little more regional information, I was involved in a project, not in 1912, but in the 70s, to look at the origins of sulfide corrosion, because the sewers in Singapore were falling to bits. And we found that the two first reports of possibly sulfide corrosion, one in Kolkata and one in Cairo. The municipal engineer in Kolkata thought there might be some connection between the horrible hydrogen sulfide smell inside the sewers and the fact that the bricks were dropping out of his very fine system, and it still is. It's just a bit oversubscribed at the moment. 1916, very unfortunately, asbestos cement raised its head. And I've been involved in asbestos pipe as Mr. Murray there, much to our shame, but we're now in a much greener industry. From our point of view, the really relevant part is in 1937, when the first PE was patented. ICI were heavily involved in that, and I will show you a photograph of the very first bit of PE ever seen shortly. But to give you some real visual perspective, if you look at how long clay has been around versus how long our industry has been around, we're that little green line in the bottom right-hand corner, and clay's been around a little bit longer than that. So we still have a long way to go. I must make an excuse here. I did not put this shirt on to match the background, but this was taken a selfie in the Imperial Science Museum in England about 7 or 8 years ago. And I went there and had a whale of a time, which my wife and children could not understand, looking at bits of plastic pipe for a whole day. But while I was there, I took this photograph of the very first bit of polyethylene, which was made into something useful. And it's a pillbox that was given to the chief technician as a gift by his team. And that was in 1937. So we can all think that this is when our industry really took off. Coming up to date, you've got to look at the industry from my perspective, because I'm a civil engineer and I'm at the end of the industry that puts the pipes in the ground and decides the sizes. And then later I got co-opted into the manufacturing side and marketing. So in the 70s, when I was a young engineer in the Middle East, AC dominated. Ductile iron was just about coming in. Cast iron was still extensively used, most of it manufactured in India, and PVC had a huge market share. AC started to disappear from the drainage side very quickly because it began to be attacked by sulfide corrosion, effectively sulfuric acid attack. Also in the 80s, we found that there was a lot of very poor quality, low density polyethylene being used in agriculture and horticulture. There was dripper tube everywhere, much of it having to be replaced every year. In the 90s, things started to get exciting. And the first PE pipes were used as liner in Oman. But they were not the first pipes in the Middle East to be lined. Somewhere in the cardboard box in my loft, there's a photograph of a pipe being lined in 1987 in Syria. Steel pipe, polyethylene lining, probably medium density. And in 1997, things really took off when Borouge decided it was going to manufacture polyethylene in Abu Dhabi. And that was a serious game changer for the whole region. Unfortunately, there was nobody really to use the raw material. There were no pipe makers with much more than the extruders needed to produce the dripper run. Then, in the 90s, late 90s, Amianted Oman took a serious chance, and they bought some serious machinery from Scandinavia and set themselves up as the first substantial plastic pipe maker in the Middle East. Very soon after, about 4 years afterwards, Union Pipes in Abu Dhabi took an even greater chance, making a huge investment without any real idea of whether or not it was going to be successful. Gamblers. This photograph is just to remind me to tell you that I was involved in the market study for Amiante Doman in another life when I was an engineering consultant. And in 2 volumes, which weighed something like 1.5 kilos, somewhere in the second volume, there's a 3-line paragraph that says, during the study, we have found rumors that the oil industry is considering the use of non-metallic materials as the pipe alternative, and this may be worth pursuing. 6 years later, 65% of the output of Amiante Doman in pipes was going to the oil industry. So I think I underestimated the effect. 2 decades on, where are we now? We have a catalogue of firsts, very impressive firsts. We have giant offshore pipelines, huge and long, large diameter horizontal directional drilling pulls. We have the single biggest, at the time, the single biggest infrastructure project in the world in terms of plastics. We'll have a look at some photographs. And the biggest and the longest internal lining jobs, and we have such rapid growth in the region over those 2 decades that I still find it difficult to understand. When we did the market survey in the beginning of the 90s, plastics were about 2% of the total pipe market, and now it's about 35%. These are difficult figures to estimate. Do you do it by weight, by value, by length? But everybody agrees we have about 1/3 of the market, and it's getting bigger. We now exchange knowledge with Europe, and it's not a one-way exchange anymore. I've been to meetings in Europe where we've explained how to put the large pipes into the sea without making too much of a mess of it. And we benefit from their experience, particularly over the last 40 or 50 years. The local resin producers pushed very hard because they knew that they were entering the market at the very bottom. So they've been very, very supportive. Sabic, Barouge, the other large producers in the area. And they continued throughout the last 2 decades and continue still to put in major investments, many billions of dollars. And almost every year a new project is announced. Having said all of that, we're one of the few areas in the world we still don't have an integrated standard system. And engineering education in plastics is severely lacking. This slide is the most important slide that I'm going to show you. We managed to pick up some years as much as 10 to 15% increase in market share because we used this model in the beginning unknowingly. If you look at the top line there, the old system was, if you were a resin maker, you sold your resin out of the door. When it went through the factory gate, you washed your hands because it was then the responsibility of the pipe maker. The pipe maker made his pipes, put it on a lorry, sent it off to the contractor, washed his hands and took his money. And all the way down the line, we did this. But that didn't work. And I was co-opted in as a pipe designer and an infrastructure man to try to liaise between the pipe maker and the resin maker and the downstream members of the value chain. So we weren't passing the buck, we were trying our best to integrate the whole system. So we tackled everybody at the same time, and we tried not to isolate people and point the finger at them. And that seems to have worked extremely well. So we still have opportunities for improvement, particularly suitable standards which suit our environment in the Middle East and South Asia. And one of the most difficult areas, particularly for the consultants involved in design, are the fact that there are so many varied and irrational specifications, usually inherited from GRP and steel. And our material, of course, is very different. But there are still specifications that exist which you can recognize as leftovers from the days of Shell in the beginning, when Mr. Murray had more hair than he does now, and I had hair of a different color. And there's always a lack of design experience because design teams move on. So our responsibility is to try and keep people up to date, especially as we are evolving so quickly. There's still no independent guiding authority. You can't pick up the phone and say, I've got a real problem here, what should I be doing now? Or I've been told by a salesman that this particular pipe will do this, that, or the other. Is he telling me the truth? You might be able to ask one of your friends, but there is no government-stamped authority that will help you out. And there's still ignorance and misconception on the environment and how it affects the properties of the pipe, particularly long-term properties. My main issue is often with temperature, and we'll have a look at that later. Very, very difficult issue to take care of in terms of plastics. And there are still hurdles in application development because there are deep-seated beliefs amongst our downstream customers that there are some things plastic cannot do. So this, I was told to tone down a little bit, so I have. There are still, or there is still a lot of black propaganda about polyethylene, and there are still some very naughty people in our industry. And they're not just here, they're everywhere. But when the market becomes more competitive, the lies, misconceptions, and the general cheating tends to increase. Cutting corners, the use of scrap, you've all seen this list many times, I'm sure. Additional low-grade materials, very poorly controlled manufacture. In some cases, let's turn the temperature up and produce more pipe. It's better for us. Compounding is difficult to control. You have a very good natural material, the best in the world, then you hand it over to somebody down a back street and he produces pipe with a big question mark over it. And there's mis-selling, telling people that pipes will do things that they can't do. There's dimension manipulation, more of a problem for PVC than it is for polyethylene, but that sort of crude manipulation does go on. And there's blatant falsification of QA and QC documentation. I've seen at least 3 cases which should, in my opinion, have been referred to the legal authorities, but were just swept under the carpet. And there are many more instances. We have to be very careful because polyethylene's been banned many times around the world. Too easy to cheat. These are the problem issues which are not derived from dishonesty and pressure on the market. We do have a problem with vocabulary and presentation. People tend to think that the words they use in the steel industry mean the same in the plastics industry. That's not the case. Rating, for example, is different. A steel pipe rating is based on a yield strength. It's an explosion, a catastrophic failure. Our rating is based on a 50-year pressure. Our pipe will last 50 years at this pressure. That's the rating, it's a 10-bar pipe. Short and long term, we don't know. Which one do you use and where? Lots of confusion. And there's overkill everywhere. Buckling overkill, temperature overkill. We just add on too much and make our product expensive. And then traffic loading and field testing, people get confused, what should we do? The most common pitfall is overkill. If you're unfamiliar, you tend to add on a little bit just to make sure it's okay. And if you're in a civil engineering company and you're a designer, junior designer says, I'm going to design this for 10 bar because I think the maximum is 8 bar, then his boss says, I'm sure this young man doesn't know what he's doing, we'll add 2 bar onto that. Then it gets onto the clearance committee and they add on another 2 bar, and you end up with a system of over-design because you have unfamiliarity, lack of confidence, over-design, you get expensive solutions, it's no good to us, technical rejection, and loss of market share. Happens all the time. Quick example, 10 kilometers of 630mm pipe, 40 degrees C, working pressure 8 bar. If you don't know what you're doing, you go straight to ISO and it tells you use a 16 bar pipe which will cost you for that amount of distance about $3.5 million, give or take. But if you go to the manufacturer's temperature charts, you can use a 10-bar pipe very safely and save yourself 1.2 million. What tends to happen is people go for the quick and easy solution. Temperature, just a quickie here. The most common design temperature in the UAE is 36 degrees Celsius. In India, it's a little bit more sensible. It's lower. But what we should be designing to are those average mean temperatures, because that's what reflects the pipe life most accurately. And it's about the same here as it is in Abu Dhabi and Dubai. But they will design often to 40. The oil industry often to 65. And we end up with this massive overkill that I mentioned before. So we need workshops and we need training. We need to improve design and installation capability. The target audience are the designers, the owners, the maintenance staff in particular, and the installers, the QC and the QA professionals. Do they know what they should be looking for? And then the environmental lobby, such as my daughters, who barely speak to me because I'm in plastics. So our target audience is effectively everybody involved in that value chain. And it goes on. You can't do it once. It's part of your overhead. This is a group trained in Cairo. I'm sure 90% of them will have moved on and are no longer involved in plastics. So we have to go back and do it again. All young people, all very keen to learn about plastics, very successful. Chanchal helped us out. I think Mr. Murli helped us out. Over 3 days, it was a total headache, but it was well worth it. The most influential people of all are repairs and maintenance staff, where you don't normally find too many PhDs. And there's a good reason for that. My ex-colleague in Barouge, Mr. Andy Wedgner, said he could summarize the reason why the maintenance staff are the most important people to convince. Because on that value chain, your resin producer, Nisha, you will have the resin for maybe 6 weeks. Then it goes out to the factory gate. The pipe maker has the resin for maybe 3 months at the longest. Then it goes out of his gate. The contractor puts it in the ground maybe within the next 6 months. And he hands over to the owner, who then gives it to his maintenance department, who has it for the next 100 years. So he's the guy who's going to be the most careful about saying, yes, okay, let's use polyethylene or polypropylene, especially if he's not familiar. And he thinks it needs specialist operators to do a repair. He thinks if you've got wet conditions, you can't repair the pipe. And all PE pipe repairs are really time consuming. So let's go back to ductile iron, it's easier. So these types of workshops are necessary, and it's not the same audience as the designers. You need to play with the toys, hands-on, and you need demonstrations, and you need opportunity for people to get involved. Build up the confidence. And I don't put this in to be funny. This is a welding team. Every single man here can't read or write, but they produce welds that pass all the tests because they were carefully trained and they do a good job and they're proud of the job they do. So, where are we going now? New products. We know, we've had mentioned already, multi-layer systems, heat reflective pipes. We are really interested to reduce permeation, and we want pipes that are resistant to heat, to chlorine, although in my opinion, the pipes we produce now are already resistant to chlorine. And we want better abrasion. We know polyethylene is far better than steel, 4 times, but a big market in mining is a real gold mine for us, because it's about the only market where we sell pipes to the same customer over and over again. And then the nanotechnology. We have carbon nanotubes, we've got cellulose, nanofibers, and graphene. Different additions of these change the material properties drastically. So you can almost now say that we're in an era when we can write a prescription for the material that we want and get it made, rather than look at the material and change the application to suit the properties. We can change the properties. And there are intelligent materials. Already there are pipes effectively which will tell you I've got a leak 20 meters down the line. There are self-repairing pipes. I still don't believe that, but there are. And self-diagnostic and early warning systems that tell us through electronics, I think you should come down here and replace me. And excuse me, 3D printing. We are on the verge of being able to print any fitting that we need to any size. It's on a USB. You don't have to spend $2 million on a fancy mold. Next 2 or 3 years, it will happen. So, what about our emerging scope? What have we done this year, next year? Well, the pipe diameters are going up. Solid wall, 3,000 actually, 3,200 I'm told at the moment. Gravity pipes up to 5,000 millimeters. And pressure capability is going up all the time, thanks to composites. There are pipes in the oil industry which can take pressures of up to 120 bar, non-metallic. Digitalization has great scope. You should be able to get up in the morning and say, Alexa, how much of my pipe order is through down in the factory across the road? And it will tell you, we are 50% through your order or whatever. And pipeline design is becoming more digitalized, so we don't have to rely so much on the civil engineers that are not represented here probably. So we're using also less power consumption. We are much more efficient than we used to be. We are greener than ever. But we still need QC stricter surveillance, which means people who are really responsible for our future. We don't want to get banned again. So here are some case studies. That picture I showed you earlier on, those pipes are still going. 23 years on, and it was estimated maybe they would last for 2 years. So they've replaced steel pipe, which were being replaced every 2 years. The non-metallic solution, good grade polyethylene, still pumping away. And they said, you can't do that. This is the biggest job that Union Pipes did, and it's the first job they did. 6.5 bar pipe, still pumping, how many years? 15 years on. Not a single maintenance issue. Designed for 36 degrees Celsius, 8 lines, 630 millimeter. Huge job, very prestigious. 9 meters in the ground, horizontal directional drilling under every road for all 8 lines. Wasn't problem-free during construction, but it's been problem-free ever since. You can't see any pipes here because it's taken from a satellite. But you look at the list of what's involved. It was a petrochemical complex, Ruwais, in the Emirate of Abu Dhabi. You have the cooling water, the water supply, potable water that is, firefighting water, acid waste water, something like 100 kilometers of varied use of pipe. Many of those uses, 5 years before, were effectively banned. You can't do it. Now they're functioning well without any problem whatsoever. This is a PRP line, you have to include it. It's big. Look at those people in the second picture across. These are enormous pipelines, and they're pulled 4 or 5 kilometers into the sea and sunk, and they operate without any prospect of corrosion. The only problem we have is a slight health and safety issue with a man sitting on the bottom left-hand corner. But I think he's okay. This is one of Mr. Murli's triumphs. This is a high-pressure effluent water disposal line. Effluent in the oil industry is any water that has less than 0.5% of crude product. So it's mostly water. They want to take it to where it can be treated, and they wanted to replace a steel pipeline, but the replacement steel pipeline had a delivery period which was unacceptable. So they asked us if we could do it, and yes, of course you can do it. Pipe was on site within 8 weeks. The design was for 24 bar, it was tested, it was put in. They wanted 125,000 barrels per day, and the pressure to push that amount through they were currently using was 350 psi. With polyethylene, they were pushing 175,000 barrels a day, and it only needed 260 psi. Time was under the Suez Canal. This one, you pass every time you go to Abu Dhabi, you drive in from the airport and you cross Masafa Bridge, have a look over the bridge, 35 meters down, under the water and under the sea, there's this pipe. Already forgotten about because it's so good. So I won't go into these conclusions too much, but the development of the industry in this region owes a lot to the gamblers in the UAE who spent a lot of money investing in a market they didn't know was there. The last 2 decades have seen incredible growth, and we're hoping that will continue. There's still massive heavy investment by the resin and pipe producers in R&D. But we still need a consistent regional approach. And the specs are a mess. They really need cleaning up. Quality control is key to us not running foul of the authorities and our downstream customers. Education and training is something you must take on board. It's not something to pass on to other people. And it's a good idea to have people like SPE encouraging you to have a consistent combined approach when you face competition from metallics and other more established pipe materials. And you need to start thinking about coherent answers to the green lobby. I fudge the answers when I talk to my daughters across the breakfast table. But we need all to be talking the same language when it comes to green issues. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That's our last project pipe there. And if you want to see me later, I'll talk about project pipe.
Thank you, Rob. I'm glad you kind of highlighted all the pain points, and I'm pleased to tell you that we have speakers through the next 2 days who are going to go into detail in order to solve those pain points. And with the awareness that how green plastic actually is, I hope that your family relations with your daughter gets better. So our next speaker of the day is Dr. Brian Landis. He's the president of SPE Global, Society of Plastic Engineers. He's the technology leader for core research and development in Dow, Michigan. Brian earned his BS, MS, and PhD in polymer science from Department of Material Science and Engineering in Pennsylvania State University. He joined the Dow Chemical Company upon graduation and has spent his 35-year career developing novel materials and measurement technologies for a broad base of applications in electronics, water filtration, automotive, packaging, construction, and energy capture storage industries. In his current role as technology leader, he is charged with establishing collaborative partnerships between government, academia, and industry. Brian has been invited to speak on behalf of and represent the United States industry before the US Senate, the US House of Representatives, the Department of Energy, the National Science Foundation, and several US Secretaries of Energy spanning the Bush, Obama, and Trump administration. Offline, I'd definitely like to talk to you about the Trump administration. Brian is a fellow and an honored service member of the Society of Plastic Engineers. He's a member of the SPE Executive Board, serving as the president of SPE. Brian, we're glad to have you with us today.
That wonderful introduction, and I just want to start off this morning by saying thank you to the organizing committee, as well as the board of SPE India. It is wonderful to be able to come here and talk with you and be with you and see the exciting things that are going on in this industry right now. Now, this morning, I'm not going to talk to you about technical things or about pipe, but I am going to speak about plastics. And what I hope to accomplish this morning really is something inspirational for all of us. You see in my title the word sustainable or sustainability. It's a very broad term. It means a lot of things to a lot of people. It means things to our industry, to the society. It means things to people around the world. And what I hope to be able to show you and convince you of today is that if you use the talents that you already are bringing to bear in the pipe industry, and that's the talent of innovation, all of the worries and the concerns we have about our industry today in the areas of sustainability for our plastics, for our planet, can be solved. Innovation is indeed the key for our industry. And what I'll speak a little bit about today, I won't go over SPE very much because you'll get to hear from our CEO, Pat Bari, tomorrow, who will talk about the society. What I will talk about is the plastics industry and how sustainability, that term, fits into what we do within this industry and what we do as we interact with the globe. And really, I'm going to look at this challenge we have on several levels. The challenge we have as individuals interacting with our community, and you just heard Robert speak about talking to his daughter across the table. That's a small community, and as we branch out larger and larger into our towns, into our cities, into our country, into the world, this challenge in this conversation really exists and needs to be addressed. And how do we go about doing that as a business or an industry? And I hope to talk a little bit about how we can have those conversations from that small community all the way up to our industry and how we can have impact through innovation. None of us really question how much our industry has innovated in all areas for societal impact. If we think about the breakthroughs that have occurred in the areas of water and food and electronics and transportation, in the area here we're talking about the next 2 days in pipes, it's amazing in the plastics industry. The message about innovation in plastics and how plastics affects our world, how it benefits society and the globe. If you look through each one of these, and you can later at your leisure, you see most of them are alarming. Many of them play on emotion and not fact. But this is what the perception of the industry in general is right now today. That's a challenge. What we are hearing are plastics, and if you read that big white thing I have in the middle there, plastics are a threat to our planet. It's not that plastic waste improperly put in the environment is a threat, which it is, right? Improperly cared for, improperly disposed of, improperly maintained, it is a problem. But the perception today is just that white area is that plastics are a threat. And this is the conversation we need to have as an industry, amongst ourselves, but more importantly with folks who are outside of our industry. And I'm going to spend a few minutes today talking about how we do that and how we can change some of the things we currently do to be more successful at that. So here's the disconnect. People recognize the impact of plastics on their lives. And that statistic on the left, 2/3 of all people, if you poll them, will say they have a positive impact on my quality of life, on the globe. But if you ask those same 2/3 people who agree with you about the benefits of plastics, are they concerned about the effect of plastics on our environment? 3/4 of the people who are already in our court are concerned. So it's not 3/4 of the skeptics, it's 3/4 of the people who already believe there's a positive impact. That's a challenge. That's a grand challenge, right? That's a conversation that we need to be a part of and hopefully convince you that the solution is not arguing with the people that want to have this conversation, but it's to innovate to solve the problems that they see at hand in the world. So let's talk about how we do that. It's a little bit of a busy slide here, but I just want to set up a framework of how we do things today in industry and how we might think about doing some things differently as we move forward. We're charged in general with developing materials, developing technology, and we've heard some already, and we're going to hear some for the next 2 days, which will deliver solutions for the world. In general, those conversations we have within our companies involve scientists and engineers, sometimes people on the business end, and we formulate, we stimulate, we invent, we dream of possible solutions and products for applications and for the world. We deliver those technologies within an organization and then outside of our organization. What's different possibly moving forward is when we think about delivering technology within our group, our company, our industry, who are the people we're talking to get input on the idea, on the implementation plan? Are they just people like us? Or are there more perspectives that we can gain from our community, internally or externally, that can help us with that? And whether we're talking about innovating within an organization or if we're looking out, and whether that's SPE or whether that's Dow, who I've spent my career with, a public company, it's the same. Think about who we are delivering technology to. How are we delivering that technology? Who's involved in that conversation? And classically, I can tell you for me, if I had some engineers and some scientists in a room, I was perfectly happy with the solution that we came up with would be great for the world. Because those were the only folks I thought needed to be in that conversation. We knew what we were doing and we knew what was needed and we knew how to do it. We knew how to implement it. And what we're finding today is there's other voices out there who are starting to question some of these things, and their questions are legitimate. So what are some tangible things we can do as we go from a small community to a large industry to start impacting and changing this conversation? One is if we think about the relationships we have, whether it's with our daughter, our sons, our extended families, people within our communities, people within our company. There are things we can do where we can work side by side with people, and in doing so we have conversations about what the world is like, what the impact of the world is like. And here I have a simple example of a program that my company rolled out, Dow rolled out, called Pulling Your Weight, where they provided the infrastructure for a community, and that community could be a town that involves schools and businesses and government, that could go out and work together on a Saturday afternoon and do a community cleanup of a park or of a river or something in their community. And in doing so, be together, be working side by side, be speaking and be listening to what each other has to say. Something very simple on a small scale, and you can think of many other things like this that we can do. So our industry is viewed in a way that we are all about solutions, and we are about including people in this conversation, in this activity that aren't necessarily like us. But the real question is as we move up, as we get up larger, as we get up to our company or our value chain or our industry, how do we start addressing some of these challenges? So within an industry, we're going to speak the next 2 days about the long-term advancements that are needed for success in the pipe industry and delivering technology to the world, whether that be for food or water or energy, you've heard, or feedstock or waste streams. That's the goal, the innovation that has to occur for that. Classically, what we've done, as I said, is we've talked to people a lot like ourselves. The challenge we have today is there's input needed from other groups. Who would those other groups be? Perhaps areas that we consider to be a little bit unconventional. Some of the areas in the social sciences, right? People who have a bend now and think about the impact of technology and delivery on society. And what is their perspective on something like that? What can they bring to the table? our school systems and our teachers, right? Are teachers prepared to deliver accurate, representative messages and concepts to the next generation of potential scientists or engineers or social scientists who are going to be involved in this conversation? So you've heard a little bit already, and Robert's talked the previous one about the interaction with education and how important that component is to all this. And when you look at that, it's very different organizations getting together to speak and work together to try to solve this problem. So here, innovation now extends outside of our company, outside of our industry, into our community, where we're pulling some other perspectives in. And let me tell you a short story here about an example. This is a great example to me. This really opened my eyes as to why this is important. Has anyone in this room ever heard about the group Engineers Without Borders? It's a volunteer group of professionals who go around the world and implement solutions in communities that really need them. The example I'm going to use here is a good friend of mine who is the Dean of Engineering at University of Maryland in the United States, Darryl Pines. He went with a group of engineers to a small town, small community in Central Africa to help deliver clean water to that community. When they went to that community, the engineers noticed that the women in the community were walking 20 to 30 minutes every day to go to retrieve water to bring back to the town. And this trip happened at least once, sometimes twice a day. Physically demanding, arduous task. What the engineers did is they talked to the elders in the town, who were all men, and said, where can we put a well in this town so we can pump the water up from the ground and the women do no longer have to go to the river and take this long trip to retrieve water? And the elders decided a location, and the engineers dug the well and implemented the system to easily deliver clean water to that small community. They left, and like in many of these projects, a small group comes about a year later to just check on maintenance, the progress of the community, how they're interacting with, what has been implemented. And much to their surprise, the well that they had installed was not being used at all. The women were still going to the river every day. So what they had hoped to eliminate had not been eliminated, and that was that long trek once or twice a day. When they talked to the elders, they really didn't get a good sense as to why the well was not being used. They decided to talk to the women. So they talked to a different community, a different part than they were used to interacting with. And what they heard from the women is this 20 to 30 minute trip to the river every day was their time together, away from the men. That's what was important about that trip in getting the water. So they didn't mind doing that because it was their time together as a community. Now think about, had the women been included in that conversation to begin with, how different the solution may have been for this small town. Right? And it's a good example. It was a very powerful example for me as to how important it is to have others in this conversation that maybe aren't like us and don't think like us, wherever we are. So let's look at a few things here. We do have a grand challenge. My hypothesis, and many, not just mine, but many's, are that innovation is the key to the challenge we're talking about today. And that is the perception of plastics and the plastic waste challenge that we have around the globe. So if we look at the groups who are interested, consumers certainly, they are getting barraged with information. They are very concerned. They want someone to take the lead on this. Governments are starting to mandate behavior because there is a lot of social pressure that has grown now, and governments feel compelled to react. And many times reacting with limited data, with limited input, right? Industry certainly wants a solution because this is our livelihood. These are the materials we make that do indeed benefit the world. And lastly, academia wants to be involved in this because they have some good ideas on how we can solve some of these problems. So here we have 4 different groups of people who are very different, who really need to be brought together in the same conversation, right? Another example of of how that can work. And I've listed in the yellow there, things under the SPE and the plastics industry. It's ways we can connect those organizations. So we need connecting groups that are focused on bringing these communities together to solve these problems. So if we look at a value chain for the industry, and this can be for any material, any application, any technology that we might be developing, we have a value chain. What we are really good at, we are as an industry, is we are really good at talking up and down that value chain and understanding as a resin supplier what the converter wants, what the OEM might want, and what the brand owner might want, and then all the way back in reverse. We're really good at that. And now what we're understanding is that linear conversation is not enough anymore. Because at the end, after the brand owner has used the product and sold it to the consumer, what the world is demanding is something is done different with that system, that article, that material at the end. So what that means now is these conversations have to involve something different. And in this particular example, now there are terms that are springing up, which people are coming more and more familiar with, which are challenges from a technology, from innovation standpoint. How can we reuse? How can we recycle? How can we repurpose materials that have ended the lifetime for the application that they were intended? And it's these new loops, these new conversations which are starting to occur. And it's new innovations in these arenas which are starting to occur. So let's think about, in the end, if we have these conversations in these broad communities, how this works. So we have a broad-based inter-organizational structure on the top, which looks at proposed solutions for society and applications. And we understand from people what concerns are about the impact to the planet, or lifetime or life cycle of the material or the system that we're looking at. We take that information now and we bring it down to the point where when we design a material for the application, does it fit some of the needs and concerns that we had above? And take it down one step further, if we go and we build a plant somewhere to produce that material, what kind of impact does that have on the local and the global environment? So now those things are being considered at all levels in the innovation pipeline, if you will, where we consider the perspectives of many, even all the way to the point of putting the plant in the ground to produce the system or the material. So what I hope to convince you of, or I hope I have convinced you of, is we need the innovators. We need you folks in this room who are the innovators to generate the ideas that are going to solve many of these issues for our industry. And we are really good at talking around our value chain, around our supply chain of all our stakeholders from within. The thing that has to change now is we have to add those voices and those ears that are outside our normal communities. We need all perspectives if we're going to really impact this around the globe. How many of you have heard in here of the Alliance to End Plastics Waste? I'm going to close with this one. So the Alliance it's a group of companies in the plastics industry. It's up to almost 40 now that span the value chain from resin suppliers all the way to brand owners and everything in between, who are focused on dealing with the plastics waste issue and then long-term solutions to the viability of our materials from an environmental impact perspective. So you can read their mission statement up there. There are some key words in that mission statement which are very important, right? Health, safety, sustainability, a focus on communities. The pillars of the Alliance are, one of them is education, one of them is infrastructure, one of them is innovation, and one of them is remediation or cleanup. So those are the four things that the Alliance is intending to impact. These almost up to 40 companies now have contributed about $1.5 billion to seed this effort. And they have put out a wonderful, small, short video, which I think speaks to how our industry and the innovators in our industry can impact this grand challenge. And what I'd like to do is, if you could just play that YouTube video quickly for us, that would be fantastic.
This is the world we see.
This is where we laugh, where we fall down,
And where we get back up.
because the world we see is not the world we know.
The world we know,
Finds a way to overcome, and we have the tools, we have the people that can change the world. The world we know is full of pioneers that find new cures,
dreamers that make us fly,
darers who take us to the stars.
and innovators who will help us preserve our world for generations to come.
Because when we bring together the heroes of today
To dream,
to build
and help our cities, our communities,
and our neighborhoods improve, we can do something truly incredible. Let's be the ones
that came together to change the world.
So I think you heard a few key things in that message. Innovators, bringing together dreaming, building. Cities, communities, neighborhoods, that scale we talked about. They're all important in this. All need to be brought together really to face this grand challenge. And in the end, that line, let's be the ones. Let's aspire to be the ones and use our innovative abilities, our creativity, our drive, our passion for this industry to make a difference, to make a change. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. You definitely have given us a lot of food for thought. And we have a lot of innovators in the audience who can definitely put pressure in the pipelines to provide solutions soon. Well, it's an honor and a privilege to have Mr. Rajendra Ramachandra Pawar with us today, who is the Secretary Water Resources from the Government of India. He was born on the 15th of July in 1962. Did his primary education in the district Solapur. His educational qualifications are he did his DCE, BE Civil, stood first in the Shivaji University Kolhapur with 82% marks and has won many prizes. He's a ME Structural Engineering, ABMA Diploma in Business Management, ADIT Advanced Diploma in Information Technology. He was directly recruited in Maharashtra Services of Engineers Class 1 through MPSC and stood second in the state. He joined the Water Resources Department in the Government of Maharashtra on 15 July in 1985 at the age of 23. He worked in various capacities as the Executive Engineer, Superintendent Engineer, Chief Engineer on major irrigation projects like the Kukadi project in Pune, Varna in Kolhapur, Kaner Hydro Power Project, the Hetwane Dam in Raigad, the Jaigaon project in Buldana district. He also has worked as the chief engineer in Amravatin Vidarbha region, and he has worked as the chief engineer in planning and hydrology project in Nasik with active involvement for national hydrology projects. He is mainly associated with planning, designing, constructing, and monitoring the overall irrigation projects, that is dams and canal distribution systems, pipe networks, construction, and water management. He has worked as a managing director, Maharashtra Water Conservation Corporation, Aurangabad, associated with planning and approval in construction of small storage tanks throughout the state. He has worked as the Director General, Maharashtra, in the Engineering Research Institute in Nasik. At present, he is working as the Secretary, Command Area of Development, Water Resources Department, Mantralay, Mumbai. He is an honorary member of several institutions. He is a fellow member of the Institution of Engineers India. He is a life member in the Institute of Water Resources Society of India, He is the founder member of Lions Club. He is the founder and member and the vice president of Ferrocement Society of India. He has written and presented several technical papers and articles in journals and symposiums during national and international seminars. He's traveled in our country almost through all states and visited major irrigation projects in India. He's traveled abroad to several countries like Israel, China, Nepal, Singapore, Thailand, Brazil, Canada, to name some. His passion has always been in search of finding and implementing innovative ideas and new techniques in the water sector for the benefit of the society. Mr. Rajendra Pawar, it is an absolute honor and pleasure to have you here.
Well, dignitaries on the dais, and my dear friends. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers and for inviting me, and particularly to give me opportunity to interact with the stalwarts in plastic pipe industry, which is one of the major support industries, particularly in water and irrigation sector. Since I work in the water sector, the basics about the status of water in our state, the challenges before us, and many other things, I think we need to know before we go for the challenges, and how we can face the challenges together along with the government as well as from the industry. I will have a quick review in my 20 minutes time schedule. What are the water scenario globally and in our state? Then what, as a government, through Water Resource Department, the various policies are regarding the saving of water. Then what are the recent policies to have the partnership from the private field? And then I will just quickly present a case study which we have successfully implemented in our Maharashtra. If you see globally, the water availability, as we know, is very less. Considering the two-thirds area covered of our earth by the oceans, only 2.5% is the fresh water. Out of that, only 68% is available in the form of glaciers, which is actually available. And again, out of that, the 1% of that flows to the river, and we get it through rainfalls and precipitation every year. So considering the quantum of the availability, the problem of water, it gets aggravated with some natural imbalances. Here is a scene of Maharashtra, our state. We are having particularly 4 major basins. One is Krishna basin, which is to the south of south of Maharashtra. Towards east, the yellow part, which is the Godavari basin, which covers the entire Marathwada and the Vidarbha region. The north Maharashtra, which is the Tapi basin, which is the west flowing river. And the vertical portion towards the west side is the Konkan region, which is beyond the Sahyadri mountain, which separates geographically the area from the rest of the Maharashtra. If we see the availability of water, the per hectare availability in various basins is shown, where you can find out the 55% of water is available in the Konkan region, but the actual cultivable land in that region is only 8%. And for the rest of the Maharashtra, the availability is 45%, where the cultivable land is 92%. This is the great injustice given by the geography itself and the nature. So this is our major challenge before us. Even though the plenty of water is available in Konkan, we cannot, or rather it's difficult to transport it towards the east due to the high heads crossing the Sahyadri mountains. In general, if you see, the Konkan and Vidarbha region is having abundant water, but the portion in between the Marathwada and some parts of western Maharashtra also is in deficit or highly deficit area. If we combine, it's nearly to the tune of 42% of the entire state is in deficit zone. So, considering the importance of the water, we have prepared integrated state water plan by all the hydraulic studies in every basin-wise, sub-basin-wise. A master plan has been prepared for the first time in the country by our state, and this is the scenario where almost you can say 1,56,000 million cubic meter water is available for our state, but the actual utilization what we can do around today is only 86,000. And if we forecast for the 2030, then the availability can be increased by increasing the recycling and reusing of the water. That is the only source remaining, because day by day the natural source is becoming getting reduced, the rainfall pattern is changing, as you know, and with the increase in the population, the per capita availability of the water is certainly going to get down. So the recycling and increasing the reuse is the only additional option we are having. So this is in general a plan for our state. Now going ahead, if you see the entire geographical area of a state is around 300 lakhs of hectares. Out of that, 73% is only cultivable, and out of that, only 85 lakhs of hectares can be irrigated using the surface water. That means by constructing dams and the canal distribution system. And through groundwater, it is the potential is up to the 41 lakhs of hectares. Now we are around in between, see 50 lakhs of hectares so far have been created by the Water Resource Department by constructing dams, and the actual potential utilized is out of that only 40 lakhs. So there is a still gap between 40 and 52 lakhs which can be bridged with the help of the pipe distribution network. So this is the area where we want the support from your industry. Again, this is a general statistics of the progress of our state. Particularly, the Water Users Association is a new concept which is taken by our state. We hand over the entire distribution system to the Water Users Associations for their maintenance and the deciding the policies regarding the distribution of the water. So this is the smallest unit available on the field where we can directly interact with the farmers and have some solutions to the water crisis. I will explain in some future slides. This is the progress since last 10 years. Approximately we have reached to the 50 lakhs I just told. Now, particularly seeing the pipeline distribution network, the around 9 lakhs to 10 lakhs hectares of land has been targeted, and we have already taken the projects into hand for the laying of the pipes for the entire distribution work of canals, including main canals, distributaries, miners, and where, of course, different types of materials are used, but still considering the advantages of the plastic pipes in comparison with the other ones, certainly those are much in demand, and there is a tremendous future for this industry. If we see what are the future challenges in water sector before us, the First and visible is the basic climate change by the revision of hydrology and average yields. Then, of course, the increase in population, the per capita availability is reducing. Then, the interbasin transfer of water, which is now needed, as we saw in the first slide itself. There is a need of huge quantum of water to be transferred from Konkan region to the Marathwada and Vidarbha region, where, of course, the the tunneling, piping, and many open canals are needed in huge quantity. It is estimated we are having around 3,000 dams of large water bodies in our state, out of 5,000 in the entire country. So almost 2/3 of the dams are in Maharashtra state. And if we consider the total canal lengths of all these projects, it is certainly more than 1 lakh kilometers. So this is the quantum available for us for the introduction of this pipe distribution network, converting the existing canal systems again into the pipeline system to save the water, save the seepage losses, save the conveyance losses. And considering all the challenges, certainly we can work together in some areas with some models in front of us to get a better and sustainable water management. These are the recent policy reforms we have done in last 4-5 years. Basically, the Maharashtra Regulatory Authority has been established way back in 2005. This is the first of its kind in our country. The other states are following now, which is a quasi-judicial authority, independent of any government interference, and which controls all the activities related to the water sector. We have some innovative concepts for the monitoring of the progress in water management. We use the benchmarking techniques, the water auditing, budgeting is done for every project independently every year. And for that, we have established a chief water and auditor, a separate post for the Maharashtra at Aurangabad. The another major policy reforms is in distribution of maintenance funds, which is totally independent of the government budget. The whatever water cess we collect, we maintain our dams within that budget only. So again, for doing this, Maharashtra is the only country. The major reform regarding the distribution network is we have a policy in 2017 that all the major distribution networks shall be converted, or if it is to be newly constructed, shall be planned since beginning in pipeline distribution network only. So far we have already completed 94,000 hectares of command area under this pipeline network. And recently we have a state water policy in which we have endorsed the farmers' participation in irrigation systems, for which I just referred our Water Users Association, the smallest unit on the field, which is actually working. So with the help of them, the public, the private sector like the industry, pipeline industry or mineral agriculture industries, and also the civil society members. So instead of PPP, the PPCP model is now very successfully accepted all over, and we are working on that. A brief comments on our policy decisions, particularly in pipeline distribution system. We have issued the guidelines way back in February 17, which made every project compulsory to go for this distribution network. The central ministry, the Minister of Jal Shakti, they have also published some guidelines regarding the designs and planning of these systems. And the total target for our state, I already told, is to the tune of around 10 lakhs of hectares. And the work is in progress. There is a tremendous scope to convert our entire distribution system in the pipelines. There are some design methods. We use the open system or the closed system like the pressurized systems which are accepted worldwide. I will just skip these, the standard advantages and disadvantages over the canal distribution and the pipeline, you all know. While selecting the pipe, these are of course the factors which we consider while designing the system for the irrigation purpose. And of course, while selecting the material, we compare all these points, and based on these, the requirements, the pipes are chosen. These are the various pipes which we use. But my focus will be on what is the role of plastic pipes. Normally, the pipelines are used underground. All the irrigation network shall go underground because it disturbs the farming activities, the cultivation activities. So it has to be below a root zone, at least 1.2 meters down the ground level. But again, there is a limitation of the diameters. But normally the plastic and other pipes are not available in higher diameter than 600 millimeters or so. So we have to go for some PCC, RCC pipe or pre-stressed pipes or maybe some kind of steel pipes. The plastic pipes having smaller diameter and for the tertiary network, the last stage network, we can say, the installation is easy because it is in the soft strata. But again, the question of durability comes. And since the canal network is having plan like some cascade, the larger diameters are required for the main canals starting from the dam itself, and then the diameter goes on reducing as you go on distributing the water in distribution channels. So here I propose some new innovations, new techniques or some improvements can be done just by not only the sealing the pipes from the manufacturers, but we expect to come with some comprehensive package along with survey, planning, designing of the systems, and then supply of materials, the installation, and maybe along with the maintenance. If this kind of model is acceptable to the small holders, the small farmers, then certainly we are having a tremendous scope in this. This will help our poor farmer to get the water in time, the assured water supply with less losses of the water and leakages. And with this, the government can also join hands with certain policies for them. Again, for this, we have this innovative concept implemented since last 2 years. We have already created a Maharashtra Water multi-stakeholder platform. So through this, it's a Water Resource Group 2030. A steering board has been formed under the chairmanship of the Chief Secretary of the state himself. And we are working on 3 groups with Department of Agriculture, Water Resource Department, and the Regulatory Authority. And with this, we have created some task force having designed some model for keeping the small farmer into the focus so that we can assuredly give him the water supply, then how to increase his crop production, then how to provide him the storage facilities of his produce and the marketing facilities. So giving the entire comprehensive package, then only we can increase the living standard of this farmer, and this model is becoming now successful. We are taking up 4 pilot projects with this model, and we are getting good response. I will talk about this model with the case study. Here is the objective of this platform. Basically, the 1 lakh hectare of some project in our state have already been taken by ITC, and they are working on the fields all the off-farm and on-farm activities to increase the water use efficiency, productivity, and establish market links. All three things together. We have invited expression of interest from various firms like the NGOs, the private companies, there are some multinational companies, along with their CSR funds, they are approaching us. And in last year when we invited the expression of interest, we got a huge response. Almost 120 UIs were received, and with this we are going ahead to take this project on a large scale. These are the 4 projects we have identified to be taken as pilot. If you consider the volume to be handled under each project, a property project near Pune, there is a command area of 71,000 hectares, and the water resource association in that project are almost 127. So that means 127 packages can be offered. We can join hand, the government schemes can be merged in, and along with the private sector and the government sector, we can give a good package for the farmers along with their own participation in that. The another major project is the Tembu lift irrigation scheme, which is in Sangli district, which is covering almost 77,000 hectares. It's a mistake. And there the entire command will be taken under the micro irrigation system for the full command area. So there are also some industries like Jain Irrigation, some Netafim, Burma, the companies have come forward, and we have started taking the training courses of the farmers, going on the fields, and what is the progress of that, I will show some slides about that. This is the response we got, I just told you, from the various companies, corporates, financial institutions. I will quickly show some slides about this project. This is the details, silent features of the project. The last line, if you see, the open canal is only for 7,000 hectares, while the closed pipe canal system proposed is almost to the 72,000 hectares on this single project. This is the stages for the implementation. We have started in Tembu, and these are the different precautions and difficulties we are experiencing. I think we certainly need help from this pipeline industry sector or some other technocrats to get solutions to these difficulties which we are right now facing through the innovative ideas, through the latest technologies, and to make this project implement as a faster way. These are the kinds of planning we do. This is a typical distribution chamber. It is locally designed to get the equal distribution of water once it reaches to that highest peak. So this kind of special inventions, I would say, those need to be manufactured by the companies so that those will be available to the farmers at a cheaper rate. But this kind of new things have come up on demand by the farmers, and I think we should support them to get these devices technically. These are just some slides of Tembu project, which where this work is going on, and of course, along with the pipes, this is the last distribution chamber where the farmers get his direct contact point from that chamber up to his farm. Some specials like this thrust block, anchor blocks, this is another area where we need some innovations and support from your industry. Some things like this new walls, special control walls and outlets. So, what is the way forward to meet the challenges? So, from the government side, we have already planned to increase the area under this pipe distribution network to minimize the gap between the actual potential created and the actually irrigated. Then the pipes are certainly have important role to play for the transfer of water from one place to another, for short distance as well as for the long distance like Konkan to Marathwada. It's thousands of cubic meters of volume is to be transferred from one basin to another basin. Of course, for this, a much higher technology is needed, which support is needed from your side. And of course, with this integrated approach for the sustainable water management is the only solution and is the need of the time. So finally, I appeal to all on behalf of government, please come forward and join us for this noble cause. Join us as a partner on a multi-stakeholder platform. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rajendra Pawarji. It's heartening to note that there are several projects that we all here can participate in. And believe me when I say, right from micro irrigation to plastic pipes with diameters of 5 meters, those solutions are available in this room. As long as the approach of the water bodies and the governments change to unit water delivered cost, then believe me that you will find the plastic pipe solution to be more cost effective than the other traditional materials. Okay, next we are going to have the chairman of the Plastic Pipes Conference, Mr. Harish Pillai. He is going to introduce you to the conference committee. Harish has been a business professional having about 35 years of work experience in the plastic processing industry. He is a management graduate, having completed his MBA in Udaipur, having proven expertise in establishing new ventures from scratch and taking it on to a leadership position with an emphasis on both strategic planning, execution, and running the businesses profitably. Skilled in product and business development, leadership and team building, corporate planning and business strategy, he is presently working with Time Technoplast Mumbai as the president of infrastructure business. He had earlier working stints in Kisan Moldings Limited, Peacock Industries, and Jain Pipe Group in Udaipur. He is a committee member of Society of Plastic Engineers and its treasurer. He was the co-chair of the Plastic Pipes Conference in 2015 and 17, and today he is the chairman of this present conference. Harish.
Good morning, friends, once again. And welcome to Plastic Pipes 2019 conference. Thank you very much for your support and such an overwhelming response from sponsors and speakers and the participating delegates. Any such conference or event needs the dedicated hard work of several people. We have a small set of core committee members. I will introduce them quickly. First, Mr. Vijay Bulani, who is the President of SPE in India. Can you please? Mr. Ramesh Parshuraman, Vice President and President-elect, SPE India. Mr. Chanchal Das Gupta, he is the co-chair of this conference. He is from Bharuch. And Mr. Rajiv Sangvi. Where are you, Rajiv? You're still out somewhere. Yeah. He is the International Counselor of SPE India. And last but not the least, myself, I am the chairman of the conference. Thank you so much.
Harish, so, gentlemen, I have taken the liberty of calling us the gladiators of the pipe industry. Yeah. So, can I have a memento presented to the present sitting emperor? Could I request Brian to do the honors? Well, the emperor is you, at least for the time being, Vijay. Could I request Mr. Rajendra Pawar to present this to our General, Mr. Harish Pillai? Could I request Rob to present this to our other co-general, Mr. Chanchal Das Gupta? To present this to my brother-in-arms and the man who holds the purse strings, Rajiv Sangvi. Can I request Mr. Rajendra Pawar to present this to the foot soldier who's looking forward to taking the throne from the emperor soon?
I would like to address this to Mr. Pawar. Your bio was very elaborate, but I didn't see SPE as an institute that you're a member of. So I'm going to make you a complimentary member of SPE. Thank you.
Well, we are not only going to make them members, Vijay, we are going to make them gladiators too, yeah, for the pipe industry, especially the plastic pipe industry, and that goes for Mr. Rajendra Pawar specifically. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have overshot our time. I'm going to quickly go through the vote of thanks. The next 2 days is going to be exceptional for us because we're going to hear about innovation and path-breaking possibilities in the field of plastic pipes. Respected keynote speaker, Mr. Rajendra Pawar, Mr. Robert Lawrence, Mr. Brian Landis, Vijay, Harish Pillai, Chanchal Das Gupta, and all the committee members of SPE India, friends and guests, I'd like to thank all our keynote speakers for taking their time and addressing us. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been an honor to have all of you with us at this occasion. I cannot thank everybody enough, especially the organizing committee who have really put a lot of time and effort in organizing this two-day event. Our patrons and supporters who have stood by us all through, a big thank you for supporting this conference. I also want to thank every individual from the plastic industry, both within the country and abroad, who have shown deep encouragement and support. I want to end by thanking Custage and Polymer Update, our media partners, Consumer Links, our event managers, and the Hotel Leela for their hospitality, and every delegate and speaker who are with us for Plastic Pipes 2019. Before we get off stage, we have a small memento and for our keynote speakers. Could I request Mr. Vijay Bulani to do the honors and present Mr. Rob Lawrence with his memento? Could I request Harish to do the honors for Brian? You need help finishing the goodies or? Could I request Chanchal to do the honors with Mr. Rajendra Pawar? So, Mr. Pawar, as you can see, you are now a gladiator of the plastic pipe industry, yeah?